Hello and welcome back to episode 18 of the Boxing Social podcast in association with Betfred. With me, your host, Rob Tebbett. Just before we get started, just a reminder that all of Boxing Social podcasts are available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Now we've got that out of the way, delighted to be joined by the realest man in boxing, Viddal. Riley, how are you, sir? Nice to see you.
I'm good, man. I love your intros. I feel like you give me what I deserve, you know? I'm happy with it. Am I your favourite guest?
You're my favourite guest, absolutely my favourite guest. But that's because we're locked in a very small room and he's an unbeaten cruiserweight who could crush me.
Yeah, I would never do that. I like you too much, man.
Thank you very much. It's very nice that you like my intro because I was called by Derek Chisora. He said that I sounded like I'm commentating on a horse race the other day.
Yeah, that's Derek Chisora, though. You know, he's always going to say something, and that's why you get the views as well. So it works out both ways.
Yeah, it was an interesting 8 minutes or so down at Chisora HQ, War HQ, ahead of his fight. It's always interesting to catch up with him, as I'm sure you'll know. But yeah, nice to see you. I haven't caught up with you face to face. I was actually trying to think of the last time we saw each other face to face. I think it would have been before KSI. No, it would have been before Joshua Ruiz 2. Yeah. When I interviewed you on the stairs.
Oh, that was that the last time you saw him?
I think that was the last time I saw you face to face.
I put on weight. I'll trim down a little bit.
No comment. Cool. I'm now joined with a Bridgerweight contender, Viddal. It's okay.
Yeah, that's true. Right now,
I'm super heavyweight, so it's all good.
Okay,
but yeah, how are you, man? It's been a long time. It has been a long time.
I've been good, man. I feel like I've been doing a lot of growing as a person, as a fighter. I'm realizing how much mentally you have to be right to actually perform great in the ring. And I always kind of separated the two. And I feel like with my most recent experiences in my life and just living and maturing and just growing, I'm realizing I'm starting to value more the things you can't see, you know, whether it's how the energy of how I feel, the people around me who I keep. Some days, you know, I won't train and before I'd feel guilty, but I don't feel right to train. I got a little niggle, I might not train, and I don't feel like the person on the other side's getting ahead of me. I actually feel like I'm going to be better than them. So stuff like that, like my mentality is changing in terms of not everything is so physical and to the eye, and you know, if you run the most miles, you're going to be the fittest guy. You know, it's about really working for you and building your career in a way that works for you. There's no one way to train, there's no one way to live, and I feel like I'm really experiencing that. So yeah, I've been good, and it's been a good journey, and I'm still on it, so I'm happy.
You have one of the more every boxer, or the vast majority of boxers, have a very interesting story. You're no different in that regard. Your career and indeed your life has taken you to some very interesting places, sure, even though you're very young. But the last time we caught up, and the last couple of times, has been since you've based yourself back over in the UK. Now, I just want to, every time I speak to you, I feel like you do grow and do develop, and there is always something new to talk about with you. You know?
You, man, yeah.
Didn't say it was a compliment.
Listen, I'm taking it. Of
course. But there's always a change. There's always something that you're doing. There's always a way for you to kind of further your outlook on life, not just as a boxer, but as a person. As I mentioned, the last time we caught up on Zoom. So glad we're not doing it on Zoom anymore. But anyway, you'd settled into kind of being back home, obviously recovering and rehabilitating from your injury that forced you out of your last fight. How are you getting on with that? What's the progression been like since we last spoke?
Great, man. Like, my back is back to normal. I feel good. I'm more aware of my body now. I've changed my whole training plan. Like, yoga is a big part of my training. Physio is a big part of my training. Like, physio and yoga alone, I'll do 6 sessions a week when I'm in camp. So it's like, before that would never exist. I'd be like, I just do one yoga on the weekend. I'll just get one physio checkup on a Sunday. Now, it's in between, you know, boxing workouts. I'll do a yoga session, go straight to boxing. Next day, I've got physio. I'm actually going to physio after this. And yeah, man, it's worked. It's worked. My body feels good. My mind feels good. And I just need the right opportunity now to just showcase my talent, because I keep talking about it. I know I'm good at talking about it, but everyone wants the action. and I promise we will get some in soon.
Well, you're still very young in your career,
Yeah.
and you've had issues in the recent past that are outside of your control.
Yeah,
exactly. So it's not like you're not in your late 20s and you're not struggling for consistency in your career in that regard. But of course, you as a fighter and everybody who's just supporting you are going to want to see you back in the ring sometime soon. How far are we away from that?
And I honestly don't know right now. I did have a fight scheduled, but it was in the US. It was going to be on the Floyd and Logan card, but with the travel restraints and everything, it just makes it difficult. 2-week quarantine interrupts the camp. Didn't find out in enough time, and just doesn't make any sense to try and do that. And there's no guarantees that you can enter into the US right now. So I'm slaving, I'm working hard, I'm sparring hard rounds, and then now I got a detour for 2 weeks somewhere. My whole team can't fly out, and it just makes things really difficult to prepare for, and it's unfortunate. Again, just like the injuries, it's been quite an unfortunate thing, but I always know on the other side of that, we're going to be sitting down and smiling. But right now, it's just one of those rough patches, and I need people to keep the belief and stay with me. And if they decide that, he's just a talker and whatnot, then they'll fly back in a couple of years when things are really happening. So either way, we're good. We're good.
You seem like you're enjoying being back home, though.
I didn't realize how much I value my family, my friends, my loved ones, my colleagues, and even little things like this is great for the mind. I'm very comfortable around you. I'm very comfortable around Ryan. It's familiar, and these breaks from such a vigorous schedule helps. And that's why I enjoy being home, because I train as hard as I train in America. But then when I'm not training, I can see my dad, I can see my uncle, I can see my family. That stuff keeps me going. And when I was in America, I realized how much that actually kept me going and took it for granted before I left. So I am enjoying being home. I'm happy I'm home. And I realize how important it is to have your loved ones, your friends, your family around you. And I'm seeing it in the ring. So it's not two separate things to me, and I'm noticing that now.
Yeah, and it's all about, again, kind of, I think a running theme from the majority of our chats is not just about being a boxer, but being a person and growing as a human being.
I watched a few of our interviews recently, actually, because I never watch them. Only the bits that you send me to put on Insta, I watch those clips, but I never watched the full thing. And I realized that our interviews are they're quite life talks. Like, it is about boxing, but they do dive quite into life as well. And I think that's refreshing, because now they're getting two bits of information, a bit of life and the boxing, of course. So I enjoy it.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for that.
Yeah.
It's always a pleasure to catch up with you, whether it's boxing or life or anything in between. It's always good to speak to you, and even better to do so in person. So we're not having to do it on Zoom.
A lot better. I get the energy now. I get the energy better.
Exactly.
Your voice ain't crackling over Zoom.
Yeah, and usually, but because I'm not on screen in Zoom as well, I usually sat there and I haven't moved for a couple of days.
Talking to myself for 30 minutes. But yeah. That's good.
Talk to me about your dad. Always keen to speak to you about your dad. He must love having you back.
Listen, he's over the moon. He has a funny way of showing it, because it's a lot of punishment. A lot of punishment, but I know he's happy to have me back. He started me off on the boxing journey. And even as an amateur, I did start off at Repton. Then I was at Newham. Then I was at West Ham. But no matter what gym I went to, he always put in the extra hours, which molded me into the fighter that I am. I give all credit to coaches from each of those gyms for being there for me on the day and adding to me when I was at the gym. But the base of everything, when we went home, the 3-hour sessions were with him. The coaches can only do so much. They got 20 boys in there. They got to spread their attention. My dad, outside of the gym, was where all the hard work was done. That's what made me the fighter I am. So to be with him now, as a professional, have the gym to ourselves, train 1-to-1, this is like me being a kid again. And I feel like that with the amount that I'm learning, the amount that I'm adapting. And I always feel like with my dad, he didn't get to where he wanted to get to in the sport. And that can drive such a passion and such a spirit to want to succeed somehow within that capacity. And I think with me as his son, and you know I'm talented and I'm good at what I'm doing. He has so much passion and drive to see me reach where he believes I can go, and where if he had the support he believes he could have went, and he doesn't want me to be the second part of that. And with that, you can't buy that. No one can, no amount of followers can get you that. You can get the best trainers if you pay the right amount, but that deep devotion and passion and intent to see your own son succeed can't be outweighed. And that's why when I train with him, I feel the best, and I know it's all genuine, and I know he's not going to ever tell me anything that's going to make me fail. And to have that in the ring on the other side of you every day practicing, of course you're going to build your confidence. Of course your self-belief is going to go up because you can feel it. It's being given to you. And yeah, maybe you can get an interview with him one day if he's in the mood.
I'd love to speak to you about it. I think it feels like me and you speak about him so much.
When you talk to him, the funniest thing is when you talk to him, you're just going to look at him and you're going to go, okay, so it's a 20 years plus Viddal. That's what everyone says. They're like, okay, I see why he's like this now. It makes sense. Everyone always says, oh, you are the same. You guys are the same. And we are very similar. Bit better looking, I am. But we are very similar.
You make a good point there. I mean, kind of the father-son bond, and I know it's, again, something that we've discussed in the past, but you've got Sean Porter and Kenny Porter, Angel Garcia, Danny Garcia, Floyd, admittedly Roger kind of in the mix as well, but Ruben Guerrero, I mean, you can really keep going on and on and on.
It is a thing in boxing. It's a thing in boxing, and it's one of those, it's a dangerous sport, you know, and you can't go to war with anyone. You can't go to battle with anybody. And that's what it is. It's a battle. It's a strategic, great sport of battle. And you would never go to any battle with people that you think are shaky behind you, because you want your life. You want to win. You want to survive. You want to get through it. So I look at boxing like that. If I look over this shoulder and that shoulder, I want to know that those guys are willing to go with me 100%. They're devoted 100%. It's not because he's getting this percentage or he's getting that percentage. Or it's literally they want to see me achieve, and all the other things are a byproduct of that success. And when I'm in the UK training with Leon Williams, my strength and conditioning coach, Harvey, my physio, and obviously my dad as my head coach, those three are a big piece of my puzzle. And yeah, as I said, I'm happy. I can't be happier with how training is going and how I'm progressing. And I could fight now. If something just came up, I could fight. So it's great to know that as well.
You mentioned there about kind of having people who aren't necessarily motivated by money. They're not motivated by their own kind of personal goals, and they're very much kind of centered on you.
Yeah.
Kind of interested to know whether or not you've had similar situations in the past. You don't have to name any names, of course, but I mean, with the greatest of respect, your profile is here, but you're still very much you're a newbie in the professional boxing game. Of course, you've been boxing as an amateur at a good level for many years, but I would assume that you've had opportunity, or you've had people potentially trying to get their claws into you because of your profile, and I'd imagine that's quite a dicey situation to be in at this stage of your career.
Yeah, it's a bit early, isn't it? It's a bit early for that.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
right?
It's the popularity and the following that enables that behavior. And I've always been, just pretty much because of how I'm raised, I've always been very cautious of people anyway. You know, I don't get comfortable around people straight away. I don't believe every word someone says. You know, I've always believed that 98% of people in the world have an ulterior motive behind what they're saying. And it's just the way the world works, you know. You scratch my back, I scratch yours. There's only a few people that will just keep scratching your back and never ask for it in return. And when you realize that, and that's drilled into you from such a young age, and you're not naive to that, it does protect you from a lot of those individuals. But it does happen. It still happens. It's life. You walk into these hurdles. It happens. It has happened to me. A few people, I'm like, oh yeah, you know, it's my guy. Me and him and no, it's just you can get views right now for me, and I know that, so we can be buddies. And once those views decrease and the next guy's getting them, I'll go to him. But that's fine, and you just live and you learn from it. But yeah, you're right, it does happen a lot.
Do you ever wonder where your career would be if you didn't have the following that you had? I'd imagine, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but I'd imagine there's been some periods of time across the last 2 or 3 years, not to say that you've ever taken your following for granted, because it's a massive positive, but where your life would have been probably a bit easier without it.
In ways it would have been easier. In a lot of ways it would have been harder. It's kind of like a balance, because the following that I have and the popularity allows me to be able to live without boxing. I don't need to box to live. I can just do what I'm doing and I'll be able to pay my bills and live my life. So how can I ever frown on that privilege?
Yeah, sure.
You know, when a ton of professional fighters need to get in the ring, especially when the pandemic happened, people had to get jobs to survive. And I looked around and I was like, wow, I'm sitting down watching this quite okay. And that stems from the following. But then that following makes my life harder when it comes to my credibility, and when it comes to how much respect I actually get as a fighter. And people can turn a shoulder on it and just think me and Jake Paul are the same person, for example, when we're actually very different. But if you don't take that extra insight and look deeper into what I've achieved, you could easily throw me in that category. And that is quite difficult and can be frustrating and can limit opportunities. So yeah, it's very, very much a balance. But then if I didn't have the following and I was just staying on the path that I was on, fighting in the ABAs, Team GB, I'd probably be in a similar position to the likes of Dalton Smith, you know, a good friend of mine, same age, same system, same everything, and probably would have been in the same position as him. So still doing well, but just not able to go swipe up and get paid for it. So it's a balance. It's a balance. I wouldn't ask for any other way, though. I wouldn't change it.
Yeah, I think it's one of the reasons that I like talking to you. You can say the positives and the negatives and still remain objective. You know, if something is bad, it doesn't necessarily always make it a negative. And likewise, you know.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
With regards to what you said there about with Jake Paul, I mean, a lot of people, I'm assuming, would have forgiven you for kind of going the, you know, let's call it what it is, the Triller route, as it looks at the minute. Has that crossed your mind at all in recent times?
Well, I was going to be on the Tyson and Jones show, which was on Triller. So I can't sit here and say, oh no, I'm never going to cross my mind. Because I was going to be on that show. Injury held me back. And I feel like that Triller show was a good show. I feel like that would have been lovely to be on.
I agree.
And then the next one was just some real WWE stuff. Like, that's how I felt. You know, they even had Ric Flair screaming backstage. It felt like I was 11 again, and I was going to see The Rock run out and do a, you know, over the top rope move. But I'm glad I wasn't a part of that event. I'm glad I wasn't asked to be a part of that event as well. And with that, I don't want to be a part of those events because you just can't. I just feel like I've worked too hard. I've worked too hard and achieved more than most of the high-level pros as an amateur. And I like where they are. And they've done really well to get in their position. I don't see a reason why I can't be there. But doing these Triller things will only push me further away from those similar accomplishments and achievements. So that's just not the direction I want my career to go. And there's a lot of money involved in it. Obviously, boxing is money. But again, it's just like it is for a certain period of time. But then I don't want to be remembered for that. I feel like I have enough of that in my arsenal through the whole KSI thing, through that whole build-up of things. I was pretty much a pioneering person within that because I was there from the beginning. So that will never leave me. And people always say, oh, yeah, you come up from KSI. That will always happen. So I don't need to fight on Triller to get that popularity from that sector. It's already there. I need the traditional boxing world, and I need the traditional achievements to now match. I want that British title, Commonwealth title. You know, I want those because that's already there. And I'm not going to achieve that by keep working in those events, those special events.
Yeah, it's very well said. There's a lot of talk at the minute. You're a big hardcore boxing fan, despite that side of your personality and your profile that you've built up over a number of years. What do you think of the kind? I feel like it's like an evolution now. It's gone away from kind of. I mean, obviously, initially with head guards and. At the Copper Box, when it was at the Copper Box with head guards and big gloves, and then it obviously went to pros, and then now it's going to
very quickly.
It's going through the motions.
Fast.
Good, bad for boxing?
I think if they control how they are doing it, it is good for boxing. Too many events like the recent Triller one is not good for boxing. I voiced my opinion on my channel about Oscar De La Hoya, for example, in the ring. What am I gonna say? I have no right to say anything. Legend, Hall of Famer. He disgraced himself and the sport of boxing by how he was commentating on an ex-world champion. He said some very disrespectful things about Steve Cunningham, and I felt like he was brought into the event to not do that. He was there to make sure all the kids at home and that new audience are aware of who Steve Cunningham is and give him his dues.
A legitimacy.
Not say, oh, he's got 9 losses because he's got no chin. And, you know, the guy's nickname is USSR, I'm sure, because of his Marine background, and he's calling him USSA. And he was a Marine, like he was in the army. That's not something that you can just do. So to just discredit him and change the title of his name because you're happy and in the mood that you're fighting in a month or so isn't right. And I feel like that sort of stuff will ruin boxing, because then when De La Hoya does decide to do a Golden Boy show, a lot of people that were supporting him will now think, oh, you're a bit out of order, to be honest, because you weren't backing us when we needed it. And that's how I feel, and I'm sure I'm not the only individual that feels that way. So those events, bad for boxing. Tyson and Jones type events, you don't have to have them on the show, but I mean how it was coordinated, how professional it looked with Jake on it, great for boxing.
Yeah, there was a lot more of a. It was kind of a slick feel. I really enjoyed the Tyson Jones card.
Yeah,
would have enjoyed it more, of course, if you were on it, of course.
Yeah, same here.
But I really liked it. I thought aesthetically it looked really good. I feel like it got the. With Snoop on commentary, it got like just the blend right.
Yeah, it was just right.
It was just right in that first one. But the next one, it was kind of like...
It was like, oh, Snoop, there's like, are you still high off what he was smoking? And I'm like, guys, this is a professional sporting event. Like, come on, man. Like, let's bring it in. Let's rein it in a little bit. It's like they all needed a halftime team talk. Like, guys, a bit wild. Just rein it in. And I think we're having a good show. They were running wild. And it was very unprofessional, and they're not even kids. They're grown men that's doing it. You know, these are mature adults. They should understand the balance of things, and they just discredited everything. So, not a good event, not something that I would like to be a part of if that's how they're continuing.
You know that audience, you know that type of demographic well, by all accounts. I mean, depending on what you listen to, the pay-per-view performed extremely well.
Yes.
Will that lead us to kind of a more extreme? I'm not sure what they could do on the next show to make it more extreme than the last one. But is that you know what boxing and indeed entertainment is like in general? Controversy sells. You know, people want to see Snoop shouting and screaming, and is that just going to lead to more of it?
There's a market for it, so there definitely will be more of it, and it will end up being its own separate thing. I can see it being a version of boxing. But you're never going to compare it to PBC and Fox and Sky Sports and The Zone. That will be its own thing, and Triller will be its own thing, and the way they're treating it is like that's what they're aiming for anyway. So who knows? You know, it's like a way of watching, like I say, WWE, but it's real fighting. You know, they're not actors doing it. And that's not to discredit any WWE athlete. I understand that it's difficult, but real results, you know, real pain. And I feel like that is a great market. That's a great idea. If you can get real fights with a WWE feel, and you know how many people watch that, knowing that it's not real, you're onto something. And I don't have time to hate on it. I just know I don't want to be that. But we'll see a lot more of it.
You mentioned you kind of being there at the start. Could you have seen it going to this level already? I mean, we're still only 2 or 3 years down the line, and it's already... I mean, Jake Paul has got the combat sports world on strings at the minute,
yes.
MMA and boxing.
Yes.
Could you have ever envisioned that when it first was starting out?
Once we got to the second Logan fight, I knew it was growing very fast. Being on the stage with Eddie Hearn and Sky Sports, Adam Smith interviewing me, and Ed Robinson and people like that, I thought, wow, from copper boxing head guards, now Sky Sports are here documenting this thing, holding press conferences on, you know, each coast, and I'm like, wow, this is big, you know. And seeing, shout out to Liam from OP, my agent, seeing him build it independently compared to when he had the backing of the networks, it was crazy. And I didn't see Jake Paul going this far with it. Honestly, I didn't know he wanted to go this far into it. And I don't think he did either. I think it was just something he enjoyed. He looked at the bank, he looked at the reputation, and he said, yeah, you know what, this works, let me do it. And he has the perfect personality for the combat world. And it's a industry full of guys with egos, guys that are prideful, guys that don't like to be disrespected, don't like their buttons pushed. And he does it. And he does it, and he does it. And they fall into it and make him bigger and bigger and bigger. And I look around and I'm like, guys, just let him be. He needs you to be that. But maybe I'm just ahead of the curve.
How has he impressed you as a fighter? Has he impressed you as a fighter?
Yes. I'm honest. I'm always honest. Always honest. And as a fighter, he has learned a lot. You can see it in his technique. And I feel like in any sport and any skill and any craft, there is an element of skill that you can learn. And then there's things that are just embedded in you from years of doing it. So I could get you to throw a great jab in 4 weeks if we banged it out every day. Could get you to slip a right hand, cross, cool. Rob looks like he's ready to fight. Get you a bad opponent, demolish him. Everyone's like, wow, Rob can really box. But because you haven't been boxing that long, when that guy cracks you in your hip or hits you low or shoulders you in your nose, you're like, what's happening? And that is the stage I feel like Jake is at. Great technique, can box, clearly. But the things that happen to you when you're like 9 years old, 10 years old, 12 years old in the gym, when you cry about it, and you know, those things when you get to my age, you're like, oh, you've met someone like you already, know what you're like. And you can do it in sparring if you want. I know he spars tons of rounds, I get it. But I mean, in competition, under the lights, when that stuff happens to you, you can't accelerate that. You can't fast track those experiences. And that is where he's at now. Good skill level, but he can't fast track those hard parts of boxing that we experience in the ring.
Would you fight him?
If the money is good, yeah, of course.
I think the money would be pretty good for that
Yeah.
fight. If Boxing Social will be preparing a bid.
No, if the money made sense and everything made sense to fight him, I would. Ideally, I don't want to. And anyone can run off and say, oh, he just said he's scared. Okay, whatever.
No, I believe that.
I mean, I genuinely don't want to because of everything that I said about already having that audience. And I don't want to dive further into it because it's going to be harder to leave it when I want to. And yeah, it would be great one-off payday, one-off big attention press conferences, but it's going to be extremely hard to then go back to achieving what I said I want to achieve. Because then the next one is fight this YouTuber. He looks good. He said he could beat Jake. Now you're the head YouTuber fighter. Now fight all these other YouTubers and prove that you're better than them. No, that's not what I want to do, and that's what will happen. Because people already comment Viddal versus Jake, Viddal versus Jake, Viddal versus Jake, just because they think I'm part of the community. And I am a part of the community, but they have to understand that when it comes to boxing, I'm not. I was a coach in that community for a reason. If I was their peers, I wouldn't have been a coach. People not putting it two and two together. I coach that community because I'm above it, not because I'm in it. And I feel like people have kind of molded my role already into a YouTube fighter, so I can't fight him and dive into it more. But I'm here to make a living, and if the money is right and he really starts doing that wind-up stuff that he does online, of course I'll take the fight.
Would you think he would fight you, though?
No, I've asked his coach, BJ Flores, and he said it's not been a topic of discussion, and he said I'd be a bit too much for him. And BJ is honest with what he says, and if he's saying that, then it's nothing I have to think about. But yeah, nothing like that.
Taking a step back from that kind of YouTube community and you know, focusing on yourself outside of boxing, but focusing on yourself, was that a difficult decision?
From
the YouTube coaching? Boxing, yeah, from taking a step back from the coaching side of YouTube boxing, not YouTube in general.
Because they're my friends, and especially with Gib. I know JJ is the one that got my name out there, but Gibbs started the whole thing for me. The whole YouTube thing. First YouTuber I've ever... He told me what a YouTuber was. He was just paying me a ton of money to do PT sessions, and I didn't understand how he made it. He explained it to me, what YouTube was, subscribers was, what views were. he gave me all of that intel. So to tell him, bro, you're gonna have to go to war now, but I'm not gonna do it with you. Because I was with him when he was losing weight, not even when he was a boxer. So I've always been with him, supporting him. And I still do. I still tell him whenever he can, come down the gym, I'll show you something, I'll help you out. But to say to him, I'm not your guy no more, that was hard for me. JJ is already killing music. KSI is killing music. He's got his own thing going on. Gib is still in the boxing thing and wants to avenge his defeat. So it was harder to leave him on that journey than it is to say, hey, man, you just got a number 2, number 1. Yeah, you know, I'm sorry. You know, it's a lot easier. So it was hard. It was hard, but you got to put yourself first. And that's something I'm learning a lot more.
It doesn't look like you're, as I said, I mentioned to you last time we caught up on Zoom that you seemed in a good place, and even more so now seeing you face to face, you seem in a great place. One thing that we've always discussed, and we've just spoken about Gib, we've spoken about JJ there, one thing we've always discussed is you fighting in the UK.
Yes.
Now, you've boxed in Vegas, you've boxed in, where was it,
I've
Dubai?
been traveling,
Dubai for the other fight. We actually got out to that fight, by the way.
Yeah.
But you've not
you was
boxed
out in Vegas as well.
We were in Vegas.
We were in Vegas because this was the same. It was around the same time as Wilder Fury.
So we've actually caught up more outside the country than we have in it.
In the country, yeah.
but now you're here. God, that must be it.
You really love me. You chase me around.
We do. We follow you. We follow you around.
You guys are chasing me around the world. I love it, man. I always got time for you guys. But fighting in the UK. Well, it's gonna happen sooner than I predicted because that's what I want. I was actually watching one of our interviews. I think it was with Ryan, actually, outside your call. Don't remember what show it was, but we done an interview outside.
So that was while we were waiting for the press conference, and that was me, not Ryan.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, that was we were waiting for the press conference, and that's
was that for the first fight? Was that for the first?
The second fight, and it was for the press conference. And we got to the press conference earlier. No, this is what
and we were standing.
This is what pops into my head because I see like this queue of people, and then you walking past. And Viddal.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah. That I remember now. I remember because it was raining and we had to stand in the little thing. Yeah. I remember saying that when I fight here, I want it to be a big deal. I want a headline and then save it. I wanted it to be a special thing that I save. And at the time of saying that to you, I genuinely wanted that. That is what I believe. But obviously, minds change. That's why we have minds. That's why we develop. And I want to fight sooner. I want to fight here sooner. You know, I want to give the UK audience that I have, which is quite large, the privilege of seeing me fight at a normal time on a show where they're already tuning in, they're already sitting down, they're already seeing other talents that are up and coming and see me amongst those names. You know, I wanna see that. And obviously I'm currently with Mayweather Promotions. They're very willing to let me fight in the UK, and they know that with COVID and with everything that's happening, it's hard as a UK fighter signed to them to get over there and be on those shows as big as they are. We know with Tank's going back out, you know, Floyd and Logan are fighting. They do big shows, but the way the world is right now, I can't be a part of them, and that's painful as a young fighter who wants to be active and wants to be in the ring, and it's no one's fault. It's just how the world is. So with that being said, they are willing to let me fight in the UK, and I do want to fight here, and I want it to be soon, and I want it to be, hopefully the next time I'm in the ring will be on this side of the shores.
You got me excited. You got me excited for the UK because as well, like I've never seen you box live. Every time I've seen you box, I've had to wait up or I've had to look back and stuff like that.
I don't want to inconvenience you like that no more, man. I want you to just have your dinner and watch me, not have a nap, wake up, and you know, I want it to be convenient for the people who have supported me from the beginning, and I developed a good worldwide fan base, but we know the core of it is in the UK. In the US, I do get my love there, but it doesn't even compare to what I receive here and what I think will grow rapidly once I prove, you know, all of these words and all of these interviews and podcasts whilst I've been injured. Once I prove that in the ring, I feel like it will only further reinforce the fan base and support that I have in the UK.
Staying with kind of you developing as a person, not necessarily just as a boxer. Last time we spoke very openly about recent struggles that you potentially had with mental health and the fact that you'd gone to see a counsellor and a therapist. Bit of Cure Oxygen
Oh
Water.
yeah.
There we
Cure
go.
Oxygen.
Cure Oxygen Water.
Shout out to Geraldine as well.
Shout out to Geraldine Davis. She's
Don't
upset
be
with-
upset at us. Yeah, this is we're paying you back. Shout out to Cure Oxygen. Actually, it's good water.
It is
I don't.
very good.
Yeah,
If I'm drinking it, it's good.
I don't just say that. Like anyone that I've given a bottle to, they're happy. But sorry, back to what you said.
Back to what we were saying. Yes, the last time we spoke, you spoke very openly, as you always do, about the fact that you've been seeing a therapist and the benefits that you were getting from that. And admittedly, that was a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
I saw kind of the early stages of the change now, and I feel like today coming in, that's kind of further down the line. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, definitely. I remember we was speaking about it, and you appreciated the fact that I shared that with you, and you can see a change in me from then to now, and it is because I'm further along that journey, and it is being more accepting of things that are happening around us. You know, my dad said something to me the other day, and he was like, a lot of pressure is put on you by yourself. You know, a lot of the pressure that you feel in life is what you put on yourself, not what actually is happening and what's going on. And that's one of those things that when I read the message that I was like, you know what, that is so true. And I feel like that is a lot of our problem as people, is we put a lot of pressure on ourselves that actually isn't there if we just don't put it there. And I feel like through therapy, reading, just being, that is the essence of it. I think it's just to feel what you feel, and don't be pissed at yourself for feeling a certain way, whether it's angry, whether it's feeling sorry for yourself. Feel sorry for yourself, accept it. Yeah, I do feel sorry for myself, but it's about how long you stay in that state of mind, which makes the difference between elevating off it or keeping you down. And I think I'm understanding the essence of that and applying it to the sport of boxing. Yeah, okay, I got hit with a hook. All right, I'm not going to run around about it, be upset about it. It hurt. Admit it hurt. Don't have to act like you didn't. It hurt. Cool. What am I going to do next? And when you think like that and don't dwell on things, you progress and you move and you fly forward. And that's how I feel right now.
Yeah, I feel like particularly in the modern era, and especially with somebody like you who does have such a big audience, a digital following, and I know from, admittedly, we're not as well followed as you are, but we, even from us doing our job and living our whole lives on social media, allowing that external voice to come in from people who, in the grand scheme of things, while everybody is still very grateful and very appreciative of the following, what matters is what happens between your own ears. Really,
and we've seen that recently with Ryan Garcia, and when I looked at it, I was like, wow, he's a young guy, he's achieving a lot of pressure, a lot of people's hands reaching out to him, in need of him, and I can imagine it's too much because I'm not on his level, and sometimes for me it's too much. So to see him withdraw from a fight at this level, at this stage of his career, because of his mental health, is refreshing to see on one side, because it's like, wow, you really prioritize this over fighting for a world title. But then on the other side of things, it's a bit disappointing, because it's like, man, you're at this level and you got this opportunity, and because of what's going on around you, you can't take it. And it does bring home the point that everything here is first, because that is a fight anyone would take. It's what he would have been working for since he was an amateur, and because this isn't right, he's not going through with it. Goes to show, this is first, that is second. Everything, this is first, that is second.
How important is it to you? I mean, you mentioned Ryan Garcia there, but you're also a great example of the fact that, I think the world's changing. Like, the world obviously will always change. That's a part and parcel of life. Yeah. But nowadays, it's less of a taboo. There's still a taboo attached to mental health, of course. But it's less so than it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. The phrases man up and stuff are not as common. They still do exist, of course. But what does it mean to you as somebody who has a large scale of influence and somebody like Ryan Garcia, to be able to show people that it is okay to need that help? And
it's important.
That maintenance, really.
I think it's important because it will reduce the amount of people that feel that way. I think through the exposure and through the acceptance that is something that happens, doesn't mean I won't knock you out, because I will. But yeah, sometimes I'm down, big deal. That's important. Because then other people feel comfortable to do it, and they'll go, you know what? Yeah, he's right. I am a bit upset, and what, and they accept it. It takes a lot more energy to hold and hide strong emotions than it is to just voice it and share it. And sometimes that's the difficult part, is the sharing. But I think it's a great thing, and I think it will be looked at in maybe 10 years, 15 years, maybe less time, as something that is not that bad. Accept it. You don't have to be. You don't look, the man there, Fury, big ambassador, big example of, I felt like this and I'm gonna get fat and this is how I feel. But then he came back, and look at him now. It's gonna get probably one of the biggest paydays ever in the sport of boxing. So if he can do that, everyone else should take a leaf out of his book and not let it get that far, because he was hiding it and containing it for so long, and he was focusing on the Klitschko fight, and Garcia's making that step early. I'm saying, I'm not going to do it. I'm not taking myself into that position, so he doesn't have to do it. The aftermath should never be frowned upon. Smart. I hope he's well. I hope he gets well, and people should take a leaf out of his book.
We've mentioned your relationship with Jj Ksi to a lot of people. What's the relationship like now? Of course, you're no longer trainer and fighter, but still close, still friends.
Yeah, we're still cool. We're still on good terms. We don't talk nearly as much as we used to talk, because we were talking about boxing most of the time. I can't help him get a number one. And I can't help
him. You might be able
to. Maybe, but chances are I can't help him get a number one. I can't help him get Rick Ross as his feature, and right now that is his priority. So the position that I was in his life in 2018, where he was trying to be a boxer and that's the only thing that was in his mind, and it was his career before even YouTube at one point, of course we're going to always be with each other. But when he's doing the music thing and I'm doing the boxing, and then it no longer crosses, and COVID and all these things, of course we are more separated than before. But still text whenever, still can call whenever. It's just if there's a need, it's not something like needs to be forced like that. It's just priority and timing.
What you said earlier about give, I think, resonated quite well with regards to, going into battle. You want to go into battle side by side with somebody. A little part of you that kind of, not regrets, but that feels a certain way about not being there the next time he or indeed another YouTuber goes into the ring?
Oh, no, because he has a new training team. So that's now their responsibility to better or match what I did. And they are way more experienced than me. So I expect to see better results, if that is how it works logically. They've coached longer, they should be able to get more out of him, and I hope that they do. Chemistry can never be replaced, no matter how much knowledge you have, and that's one thing me and JJ definitely had. At the bare minimum, as fighter and coach, friendship second. So hopefully they can get something close to that and get through to him. Because I don't care who you have, if you don't listen to them and they can't get through to you, you might as well have the guy off the road as your coach. So that's what I'm hoping for we see in him. He said the other day he still wants to fight. I wasn't sure if he did or not, because he didn't say anything for a little while. But then when he put out the video, it's still something that's in his mind. So yeah, I hope this new coaching team serve him well, and he gets rid of Jake Paul, because if anyone's going to do it, it should be him. It should have been him a while ago. And he's kind of let this thing drag on a bit too long and given Jake more time to improve and get better and become more of a threat, which wasn't wise, but he's obviously doing other things, so we'll see.
That's kind of where I was going to go with that. Jake Paul has progressed. I think, it's important to recognise the level of opponents that he's boxing, but also, we have the thing in boxing, the eye test. It's clear to see that there have been improvements being made, whereas JJ has been focusing on other avenues, which is going to be of a benefit to Jake Paul if indeed that fight does happen.
100%. And he needs to know that. I know that. Sure, pretty much the world knows that. His coaching team, and he needs to know that. And I feel like one thing knowing and one thing doing something about it. Having 12 months of training, sparring, and then saying, oh, hey, Jake, want to fight, isn't taking it seriously. And I don't know if he took a little bit of offense to me saying that he needs a couple of fights before fighting Jake, but I say it how it is, and I want the best for him. So and I'm honest. So yeah, you do need to get in the ring and have a couple fights before you step in the ring with someone who's been active. And if his coaches announce that at some point when he's ready, I'll be confident that they're taking it seriously and not letting the ego feed them to think that they can just go straight off not fighting since November 2019 to then fighting a guy that spars every day and been having fights. And everyone that knows and has half a brain will know I'm telling the truth here.
And that's the same whether it's YouTube boxing, British title, world title, whatever level of boxing. Yeah. That is always the way.
Of course, any time, that's always the way. There's just certain fights you're not ready for. It doesn't mean you're not a good fighter. It doesn't mean you got to throw your toes out the pram. It's just like, not yet. A couple fights, 3 fights. Yeah, cool, we'll take him. That's being strategic and smart. That's how people like Floyd can be 50 or not.
Speaking of Floyd, you mentioned there his bout with Logan Paul, or his exhibition with Logan Paul has been rescheduled, or we're awaiting official confirmation for it. I think I read words from Eddie Hearn, who of course was involved in KSI Logan Paul too, called it disgusting for the sport, Mayweather versus Logan Paul. Bit of an interesting one because it is a different type of feel. You've got a YouTuber versus not just professional fighter, but one of the very best fighters of his era, and of indeed any era, in Floyd Mayweather. What's your kind of thought on the whole thing?
I think as barbaric as it sounds, people come to watch boxing to see pain. They come to see someone get hurt. That's what they're entertained to see. And it sounds harsh now, and everyone might be saying, oh, no, it's true. No, that's what you come to see. And with that fight, I can't see it. And I think that is the problem. I think we know Floyd is not going to get hit. Logan, it doesn't throw many punches. We've seen this on a couple of occasions with a big time difference between a first fight against JJ and the second fight, and his punch output reduced from the first fight to the second fight. So with Floyd's ultra defense and with Logan's tentativeness to punch, I don't know where the action is going to be. Now, that's the whole reason why we tune in, because it's the curiosity and it's the anticipation of, so how is this going to turn out? That's why it's going to do really well. But I think people see a problem with it because there is no level of competition to it. And we know there isn't. Whether it's because of weight, whether it's because of one guy being one of the best boxers ever and the other guy being a YouTuber, it's hard to see where the competition is in this fight. Very easy to see the numbers, very easy to see the attention, very easy to see how it generates a huge event that a lot of people would love to be a part of. And I think that side of it is amazing. But when it comes to the actual battle, which people come for, loads of question marks on how is this actually going to go. And that's why I can see why Eddie can say it's a bit of a circus and stuff like that. But either way, going to tune in and we're going to see.
Yeah, I think Eddie would, if he was offered the fight for DAZN, I think he'd probably...
Yeah, that's what I mean. It makes so much business sense. Yeah. And who knows, man? Logan might go in there and go for it. That's why you have to tune in. You can't miss the odd, chance that he goes in there guns blazing, realizing, Floyd, you're actually small, Let me just swing at you and see what happens.
Floyd's 44 now?
Like, that is what we want. That's what I want to see. I want to see Logan say, I'm bigger than you. And you're one of the best boxers ever, but I'm swinging. And if I can hit you, I can. If I can't, I can't, but I'm going for it. I don't want to see him try and outbox Floyd because it's just not going to happen. But with what Logan's shown me, he's going to try and do that, and it's just going to get on my nerves.
Yeah, I think that'll be an interesting battle of the jabs.
Battle of the jabs. Yeah, I want to see him try and bully him and Floyd show his elite defense and perfect little counters that deter Logan from continuing to attack. That's the fight I would love to see.
I'd quite like to see Floyd march forward.
I
think that's probably what we would see. I think we'd probably see Floyd have a look for a round or two
and start walking
him down.
That's what we want to see. I want to see defense as we know Floyd can do on the back foot, and then when Logan starts going, oh, my arms are tired, Floyd goes, yeah, time to get you. Yeah. That's what I would love to see.
Yeah, which is quite a little bit of what we saw in the McGregor fight.
Yeah,
I always say to people that the Mayweather-McGregor fight reminded me of a seasoned pro spar and an amateur. Yeah. Where for 2 or 3 rounds, he'll have a look, and then as soon as he starts to see that dip, he comes forward,
breaking you down. And that is what I would love to see. And I guess we ain't got too long until we get to find out what happens.
Okay, right, move on. Let's talk about some professional boxing. One of the things that we've always spoken about in the past, I mean, the cruiserweight division domestically is thriving in this country, but
Popping, yeah.
you're at different... I mean, it's a strange one for me because you're at different stages of your professional career, but we're about 20 minutes away from the Commonwealth and potentially soon to be British champion Chris Billam-Smith. I think he might be challenging for the European title against Tommy McCarthy.
Nice.
Somebody has a win over him in the ABAs.
Yeah.
That somebody is you.
Yes.
Where are you with regards to your Chris Billam-Smith, your React Pauls, your Tommy McCarthy's?
You know what? This is how I feel. I feel like I've been blessed to be compared to people that have 6 years on me, 5 years on me, and to be so close to them, but with so many more years to allow myself to develop. I feel like a fighter where I feel like I can beat those guys with more experience, more in-ring experience on the night. I'm not talking about sparring, I've done that for years. I mean in the ring. I feel like I could beat any of those names that you mentioned. But my theory is, why do I have to fight them when I'm 23 years old and they're 29, 28, and they kind of have to chase the highest level before it's too late? I don't have to do that. I know it's been a thing of today where people rush 8 fights, 9 fights, and they want to jump and jump and jump. Cool, respect, fair enough, but I want to learn the craft. I want to do not as to the extent of what Mexicans do.
Yeah,
you know. But I want to have that, just learning, 24, 25, 26, 27. Now, all of those years of learning and not rushing, just like what they would have done back in the day. Tyson knocks over a ton of guys before he gets in the ring with Berbick. He's active. He's in the ring. He's learning. No one's doing what Lomachenko and that. That's quite a new thing, you know, to just jump in and say, in under 10 fights, I'm going for a world title. Or in my 15th fight, I want to be world champion. It's okay to have 23 fights, 25 fights, and then become a world champion. It is okay to do that, and that's what I want to do, because I know the more time I'm in the ring learning and progressing at a very steady rate up in the level, when I get to that level I won't be found out, because I want to get to that level and stay there. It's not about blazing through this level, getting to the top level and saying, you know what, man, should have had a couple more tough challenges before I fought for that world title. I'm not trying to be that guy. I want to go there and stay and do it correctly. And before I fight for a world title, have a stiff test, stuff like that. Do it properly. I want to do it properly. I don't have to fight to make a living, so I don't need to rush to bigger paydays. I don't need to rush to pay-per-view. I have the privilege of taking my time, building my following, because remember, every time I fight, I'll get about 50,000 followers, 1 million views, 2 million views. Why not rack up an accumulation of 30 million views, 2 million followers, whilst climbing the ranks to then go there? Why do I have to jump? I just don't see why I have to do that. And to be my weight and be the age that I am gives me more room. We all know heavier guys peak later. Don't rush. Take your time. Learn from those guys. Watch those guys. Study those guys. Take things from those guys. Spar with those guys. And by the time I get to that level, they'll either be dipping off or I'll end up battling with them. And I know I'll be at my prime. I'll be ready and I'll be peak to deliver the best performances and show them that I'm above this. I'm actually very elite. It's not nip and tuck. And that's my aim.
Do you think, I mean, you make a good point there about not having to do that. Do you think if things were slightly different, if you didn't necessarily have the backing that you had, you maybe would try and get on with it a little bit quicker?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's been the blessing in disguise. That now I actually can perfect my craft because I have the freedom to do so. Instead of thinking, man, I ain't trying to work in Tesco much longer. Get me some hard fights. I need to get paid. I need to jump up. And again, I don't say anything with disrespect. I'm just saying what life could be for me. And that is a reality. I could be doing that and saying, oh, I'm rushing. I don't want to do this job no more. I can't fit it around training and stuff like that. I don't have those problems. And I'm grateful and I'm thankful to be in that position. And why, if I've got that, should I just act like I don't? I should think of how to use that to my advantage in multiple ways. Not just for brand deals and stuff like that, but actually how is it going to progress me as a boxer and make me a great boxer? And to have that freedom, that's what I use. That's what I'm going to use.
Now, one of the names that I didn't mention there is somebody that I know you know very well. You've done a lot of rounds with him in sparring. The new WBO cruiserweight champion, Lawrence Okolie. Yeah. You know Lawrence very well. I think when we first met, you just finished helping him prepare for the Isaac Chamberlain fight.
Yeah, a while ago now.
Yeah, a while ago now. That was a terrible fight, by the way.
And I know Lawrence knows that.
I always like to bring it up because he's
do you
know, he's quite similar to you in a sense. I feel like he's very self-aware.
Yeah.
He knows what's what. He knows that and the Matty Askin fight were terrible fights. He's one of those guys you can comfortably say it in front of because he's and he's got a world title now, so I'm sure he doesn't give a shit what I think.
It really doesn't matter.
But you must have been impressed, as a lot of people have been, with the development and progression that has led him to, a brilliant performance and beating a very good fighter in Krzyzstof Glowacki.
Yeah. No, great performance. Best I've seen him. We've seen the improvements. That can be down to Shane McGuigan, or it can be down to himself. It's not always the improvements are done by the guy that's holding the pads. Majority of the time, yes, that is the case, but it can happen within yourself. It can happen with something that you've just felt and decided to add in as well. And we got to give Lawrence credit for that. I don't want to pass all the achievements over to the coach, even though he deserves some. Great performance, improved a ton, no clinching, great style. That's when we say styles make fights. Glowacki wasn't trying to make it messy, which allowed Lawrence to keep range, allowed him to keep distance, and from the day he would have walked into any boxing gym looking at him, he would have been taught how to keep someone at the end of the jab. People that duck, people that try and rush him, that is going to be his bread and butter, and he perfected that on that night. Great performance, great power shown, good variety of punches, the most variety of punches I've seen him throw, and he deserves to be world champion, because when you look at his competition and his peers, he's either beaten them, whether it's ugly or not, or he's already got the titles that they are now battling for. So he should be the world champion, because there's no point in him recycling the belts he's already won. So credit to him, and he has made it look fairly easy as well. A few shaky performances, but a lot of knockouts too, and not any pain, no knockdowns, no cuts, no nothing. So fairly easy, he's done it, and now is where it gets interesting, because you can't avoid certain people, you can't skip over certain people, and we'll really see if he is elite as being, WBO world champion, if he's ready for the other champions in the division. And he is. Whether he loses to them or not, that has to be the next step. And it's going to be very interesting to see.
Yeah, kind of what we were talking about with you with the slow burn. I mean, he's somebody who, even from his amateur career, got on with things very quickly.
AJ, yeah, similar to AJ. They just kind of that skyrocket into it. But then that's because they start late. They start 18. If I started boxing at 18, I probably would be on the same thing. You become a man quicker. It's what I mean. People look at everything they can see. But then at 18 years old, 19 years old, your brain is in a completely different space when you start doing something. You're not looking at it as a boy. I started as a boy, so I'm looking at it in a whole new light to someone that's an 18, 19-year-old man who is now getting into something. Of course you're going to move quicker. You have self-confidence quicker. You're more sure of yourself when you started in the sport as opposed to a 12-year-old, 13-year-old. But people don't look at things like that. So, yeah, of course they're going to go through, and they've done very well, and I'd like to compare AJ to Lawrence in that way of starting Olympics, pro, world champion. And no one can frown on it, and he's got his book, and he's got his music as well.
What do you think to his tune?
He's taking the stuff I've been doing. He's taking the stuff I've been doing. But he has the right to do it. And I like when people don't feel like certain things are exclusive just to them. Like, I can't sit home and be like, I had a YouTube channel first. Why is he making a YouTube channel? Of course he's going to make a YouTube channel. It's great that he's doing that. Someone has to start it. And he has the right to the laptop that you have to make one. So, I'm glad he's making music. I'm glad he's doing these things. And it actually makes it easier for people like myself. Because if a man with credibility within the sport is doing it, and he's making music and he's world champion, people start getting onto me saying to stop making music because I won't be a world champion. So, Lawrence, make some more songs and it might get me some more streams as well.
It's all for the greater good, Lawrence.
It's all for the greater good. We're all helping each other.
What did you think of his track, TKO?
I think the beat's really good. I think his the boastiness, you could say, of his bars were very good because it's believable. What I liked is that everything he mentions, you can see. A lot of people can say, I got this watch and I got this chain and I got these diamonds, but they're not present. They were all present. They were all there. It was very high fashion, high lifestyle. So it fits. I just don't like the chorus. In
Dubai with a whole load of Arabs.
Yeah, I don't like the chorus. I feel like the chorus was like, you could have rewritten it. It would have been a bit better. But versus the instrumental video, good job, Lawrence.
Cruiserweights in this country, we've got you, we've got Lawrence, Richard Riakporhe used to do music as well in the past. We should, I think we should probably sort that out rather than sorting out like a World Boxing Super Series. There we go. That's got to be the next step.
With all of us in there.
That's got to be the next step. There's another big room out there that I'll show you. And when we can get people in there, that's going to be the next step.
Look, no, don't nod like that. That's his like we're making this happen. That's the nod. You know what? It would be. I think it would bang.
Oh yeah, of course it would.
I think it would bang.
Of course it would.
All right, well, you put it out there now, so we'll see what happens.
There we go. Right, okay, before I let you go, we've touched on it very briefly. We've mentioned both of them individually. Let's mention them together. Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury. Seems like we've been waiting for an announcement for a while, but let's not go into that. First off, what a massive fight for boxing. Not just British boxing. Obviously, it's going to be the biggest British fight of all time, blah, blah, blah. But on the world scale, undisputed heavyweight title fight, if indeed that is the case when it comes together. But just a brilliant fight.
Great fight. We're so fortunate and we're so blessed to have two guys from the UK a part of this mega fight. Super fight, one of the biggest fights in boxing history, the undisputed heavyweight championship of the world. We all know the heavyweight championship of the world is the most coveted title in sports. And every other sportsman respects the heavyweight champion of the world. And unfortunately, not the cruiserweight. but
so you still got to grow into your man strength, don't worry.
You know, but no, it's a huge deal. It's a big deal, and it's just great to have two guys from here. It shows a lot about the boxing here and what we can produce and develop, because it's always been a sport that has been dominated by, the American scene. Has been, especially the heavyweight division. So to have this fight can be a big change in the way, the way boxing has been run and who's involved in these top level heavyweight championship fights. I just think the fight needs to happen ASAP, because that works in Fury's favour. If it doesn't happen ASAP, it works in AJ's favour, because AJ learns rapid. He learns very quick. And that's something I've noticed in his performances, because he hasn't been boxing that long. So he's finally getting to the stage now where he's comfortable within it. It's normal. Now, instead of just rushing my way through and just doing what Rob McCracken tells me to get a medal at the Olympics and to not lose, he actually has the freedom to go to this coach and that coach and learn this move and actually develop as a skilled fighter, like what people do from the age of 11 to 20. He's now 31. And now can get to that stage where he's like, I don't have to rush through no more. I don't have to keep proving. I actually can learn a way I want to box. Dangerous. And I think I still go with Fury. I slightly edge with Fury. But AJ adapts and changes. And that's what makes the fight interesting, because more time AJ has, the more time he's going to spend a week with that coach over there, then learning a bit with that guy over there. And you've seen Fury doing it, because he's out in Vegas working with a few different coaches besides Sugar Hill. And I'm glad he can see that that's needed, because AJ maximizes his resources, and that's why he's in the position he's in.
And he's also, we've kind of, again, spoken sort of about boxing, but mainly life. But, I mean, the two are entwined, particularly with Anthony Joshua, and a lot of boxers, boxing is life. But Anthony Joshua's been there. He's kind of been the highest of the highs, and then he got knocked out in New York by Andy Ruiz. He came back. The pressure on him going into that rematch must have been absolutely massive. But I'm not going to name any names, but there was a lot of people in the media who were, very much... oh, if Anthony Joshua loses, I might be out of a job. And to have that kind of external pressure or that feeling around you pressure must have, again, growth as a human from something like that must have been astronomical.
Yeah, I think so, and I think we've seen a big change in him since that Ruiz loss and after regaining the titles, we've seen a more spiteful side of him, a more cutthroat side of him, more no nonsense. And I feel like he's always been that person. But I feel like now he's embracing it and doesn't feel like he's going to be judged harshly for being like that. Whereas before, it might come across wrong. He's earned the right to be himself, and that is wrong. That shouldn't be the way the world is. You should be able to be yourself anytime you like. But unfortunately, that is how it is. He's being very blunt, and it's good to see because it's no nonsense. And he said that, I'm a fighter. I'm a role model by accident, but I'm a fighter. And I feel like he's in a great mental place, being able to just be free on camera, off camera. This is me. I'm AJ. Like it, lump it, whatever. I'm heavyweight champion of the world. Gonna be undisputed. That's it. That is such a mental relief to then having to try and be a nice, friendly guy to everybody and keep everyone happy. He's clearly taken a step back from that, and he's just focusing on his craft, being himself, and that's gonna make him a more dangerous fighter. And that's why the more time passes, the more I'd start edging with Joshua over Fury. But that's why it's a great fight, always like this.
Okay, right. The last thing that I want to talk to you about, I spoke to somebody recently who you know very well, who said some very, very nice things about you, some very complimentary things. I spoke to Stitch Duran.
Oh, okay, nice.
3 or 4 weeks ago.
Shout out Stitch.
Boxing fans, MMA fans, and just kind of general combat sports, or even
Stitch,
sports fans will know Jacob Stitch Duran.
Watch Creed.
There we go.
He's in there as well.
He's everywhere. He told me that you remind him, and this is, you go and have a look at the interview and don't try and say he's wrong because he's Stitch Duran. He knows more about boxing than me and you put together. He said you remind him of a young Muhammad Ali.
Wow, that's a big compliment, isn't it?
Massive
shoes to fill. Bloody hell, Stitch. You could have picked someone a couple ranks down, but
no pressure now.
That's amazing to hear from such a legend and someone who's seen so many fighters. I don't even want to see the list of fighters that he's seen, including MMA and boxing. And I know he was in Andre Ward's corner and he's worked with people like that. So for him to say, "No, you remind me of that," is not empty words, and it's not someone who's not knowledgeable on the sport. And he will have reasoning behind why he's saying that, and that's crazy, It's a very. I have to thank him now. I've got to text him, send out a little thanks, because that is a big deal, and to have someone with that credibility voice that I need those things, That's the truth. I need those things, and those things mean more to someone like myself than someone who did start off on a traditional path, because I need those guys to say, "No, this guy, don't write him off. He can fight." So I really appreciate that comment from Stitch, and it means more to someone like me, a fighter like me, than it would to someone else, I think. So shout out to Stitch. Thanks for that. Make sure you wrap my hands next time I step in the ring. You can see I've got a little knuckle problem, so I'm obviously missing you. So let's go.
Best in the business. Okay, well, Viddal Riley, always a pleasure catching up with you. Really glad to have done it face to face. Finally, no more Zoom.
Listen, you got to watch your back. You see, I've been doing these interviews.
I know, I have actually. Before we go, not that you need the plug, but before we let you go, let's talk about that a little bit. Because you have been doing the interviews. You enjoying that?
Yeah, I am enjoying it, man. I fall into all these things by accident. I promise you, I never set out like, you know what, I'm gonna coach some YouTubers. Like I don't think like that. I just help people and try and think of ways that, like, I try and do what I know people want to hear. And I think I've taken that approach with my interview style as well. Like, if I think you're going to lose, as a man, like, I should be able to tell you I think you're going to lose without you crying about it. It doesn't mean it's going to happen. And stuff like that was what made the Ben Askren interview blow up, because people like, he actually told him he thinks he's going to lose. I'm like, yeah, like, I do. I didn't come on here to kiss your ass and make you feel great, but I will respect you for what you've achieved, and I always make sure people get the respect, and it's always known, and I'm enjoying it. Happened by accident, but it's a good thing, and I think I'm gonna do less of them. I don't want to upset you guys, yeah. And I like coming here, and I don't want the vibe to ever change, yeah. So I'm gonna do a couple more, and then I'm gonna leave you guys to do your thing. Shout out to Boxing Social always. Make sure you go and watch their interviews and my interviews.
Well, hopefully after we do this, we're recommended videos. Come on,
yeah,
the YouTube
we'll
algorithm
come
will
up
sort us
together.
out.
That's always better anyway. That's good.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Viddal, thank you so much for popping
Thank you,
down.
man.
Nice to see you looking so well. Can't wait to
Thank
see
you.
you back in the ring. Hopefully somewhere a little bit closer than Las Vegas or Dubai.
Yes, it will be. It will be, man. That's what I'm not settling for anything less. I'm not settling for anything less unless it makes ultra sense in another way. But UK, have some patience. I'll fight soon. It will be good. It will be a good performance, and we'll talk about it and we'll react to it, and we'll do our thing and we'll hop in the ring very close. I don't want them to be all spaced out, so we'll see.
Okay. Leaving us. That's called a cliffhanger. Leaving us wanting more.
That's the way. That's it. You know how YouTube is. You know how this business is.
Okay, well, Viddal Riley, the realest
Thank
man
you,
in
man.
boxing. Thanks very much for popping down and appearing on the Boxing Social podcast. Look forward to catching up with you soon.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Good stuff.
Cool.